Well, the U.S. is seeing good news on almost all fronts against the coronavirus right now. What continues to unfold in India is certainly and utterly a disaster. Nearly half of all global infections and a quarter of deaths around the world were in India in the past week. You can forget the numbers and just look at these pictures. People are desperate. They're suffocating to death on the streets and even in hospitals as they're running out of supplies. And everyone is begging for help from their government or somewhere. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is widely blamed for the crisis reaching this point. Watch this report from CNN's Clarissa Ward.
As a raging pandemic tore across the country, thousands flocked to the streets for political rallies, with hardly a mask in sight. At one gathering, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi praised the turnout. "I've never seen such huge crowds at a rally." On that same day, more than 260,000 new cases of COVID were recorded in India. Shortly after, millions of worshippers were allowed to congregate for the end of the weeks-long Hindu Kumbh Mela pilgrimage. After all, Modi had already declared victory against COVID.
In a country where 18% of the world's population lives, we averted a major tragedy by effectively controlling the coronavirus. We saved mankind from a big disaster by saving our citizens from the pandemic.
As a second wave of coronavirus ravages this country, those words have come back to haunt Modi. Critics accuse him of putting his political interests ahead of the health of the nation.
We didn't even ask the question of what we needed to do based on learnings from this last year in the event that we'd have a second wave. A second wave was never off the table. You just had to look around the world. You don't have to be a scientist to say that. We did nothing. Instead, we celebrated, a bit too prematurely, Indian exceptionalism.
Now, India's healthcare system is on the brink of collapse, with shortages of everything from doctors and drugs to beds and oxygen after years of neglect.
It was always going to be difficult to contain the spread of COVID here in India. This is a densely populated country of nearly 1.4 billion people. The Indian government is blaming the rapid spread on this new double mutant variant, and it says that it warns states to remain vigilant.
Still, many doctors agree that the devastating toll of this second wave could have been mitigated with better preparations and a coordinated response. Assured of victory against the virus, India began exporting the vaccines it was producing instead of inoculating its own population.
How much responsibility does Prime Minister Modi bear for this?
He's the Prime Minister of the country. He takes full responsibility for all that we do good and all that goes wrong.
Do you think this will have an impact on his popularity?
I think as of now, what we have seen, especially over the last 3 weeks, is complete policy abdication, and certainly I hope that we hold our government accountable for what we are seeing today.
The government has announced a raft of measures to try to combat this crisis, including drafting in medical students to help doctors, getting the Navy involved, getting the Air Force involved. But some are saying simply that it's too little, too late. And while it's not clear what the political fallout might be for Prime Minister Modi, people are saying here that this problem is not going away. One state health minister warning that there could be a third wave on the horizon. Clarissa Ward, CNN, New Delhi.
Clarissa, thank you so much for that report. Coming up.